We gotta clear the snakes out of the cockpit.
Yeah, clear the snakes out of the cockpit, yeah.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
House. Got that sound that can't be beat. House.
Hey guys, as promised from episode 1, I wanted to make sure to warn you guys if there was any bad language, and there is a little bit on this episode, and it has been edited out. But we haven't decided what to do about the swear jar and what nonprofit to donate that to. But just to let you know, we will be doing something. Hope you enjoy this episode. It's fantastic. Have a great day. God bless.
Sound coming through the stereo. How you feeling shook? Vertigo. All of this confidence, dripping finesse, hitting notes and falsetto. We love tacos, so let Ricky do his thing pronto.
All right, guys. Welcome to the Bomb House Podcast. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm awesome, man. How are you doing?
We have somebody pretty special today.
I would say so.
I would say he's a kind of a big deal. We just went out to dinner and we were treated like kings.
I'll bet.
Just letting you know.
I have a strange feeling that's because you were there.
That sexy voice. That's the sexy voice of Benton Blount. Talk to us, Benton.
What's happening?
Hey.
I didn't realize it was going to be like actual sound effects coming from the people doing the podcast.
Listen, nothing but the best production.
We're working on the the digital version.
We're working.
This is all analog.
I wouldn't do it. I'd do it just like you're doing it now.
We have major plans. Okay, We're kind of a big deal. Okay, Anyway,
I mean, we got like 27 likes on Facebook today alone.
Big deal.
And I haven't even invited anybody yet.
Big deal. But so for our listeners, you may recognize Benton Blount from a small TV show. What's the name of that show?
America's Most Wanted?
No, not that show. It was America's Got Talent.
That's the one. I keep forgetting. It's basically the same thing.
He was, man, you were great on that show.
Well, thanks.
I think I fanboyed. I worked hard.
Yeah.
I think I worked hard for you.
I appreciate it.
On that show.
A lot of people had to do that. Unfortunately, I think they threw their life into it. It was great, but I hate that people went over and above their.
Well, I thought you killed it. I thought you did great, but and on top of that, you're into country music too, right? A little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit maybe.
I think it was. I kind of had to. It was like it. I knew just the way that I talked that I was going to end up doing something country. You just
didn't know when in your life that was going to happen.
Yep.
So just some history. Me and Benton go back a long ways.
Mm-hmm.
We have known each other. I don't even want to count the years, but I can tell you personally that, and I can tell our audience that we have a very good friendship. We've maintained a very good relationship over the years. I played guitar for you for a long time, and we've recorded lots of music together. Yeah. I don't even want to count how many songs.
We have from your. I was a part of your original recording setup, which was in the basement of my parents' house. Yeah, and it was where that tape, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy, man. Back in the day. So I got to watch you develop in a way that I think a lot of people didn't get to see. Right? I think you were always one of the best vocalists I had ever met. I think the first time I heard you sing was at a church. We brought you in for an event, and it literally blew my mind how good you guys, you were specifically. The band was great.
Thanks.
But I thought your vocal was pretty killer. I did not realize that, eventually we would, the relationship would become what it became. So just a little history for our audience who may not know. Benton is from Western North Carolina, originally from a small town.
Oh, yeah.
From Valdese, North Carolina.
Exit 113.
Yep.
Valdese.
So he is, we've talked about this on the podcast before in other episodes, and one of the focus of this podcast is, to focus on talent from this area.
Right.
We've had some amazing talent come through here over the years. And Benton is one of the guys that just worked his tail off.
Yeah.
Right? So, but not without some controversy.
Oh yeah, I think controversies should have been part of my name.
Yeah,
because you got started in Christian music, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell this story real quick. The first time, I don't know if Jimmy knows this or not, but the first time I met Ricky, I played at his church.
Yep. Celebration Family Worship Center.
Oh yeah, it was the first time that we had ever had to put our drummer inside of a box to play.
Yeah, we had the plexiglass thing.
Yeah. So he had headphones on.
And he was a lefty.
He was a lefty.
Yeah.
But the best part...
We had a talkback mic on.
Yeah, there was a talkback mic.
Chris.
And so Chris and Ricky are sitting at the soundboard. And I can't remember if it was a guitar tone or drums or something, but Ricky and Chris weren't fans of it, and they were talking about it. And the whole time the drummer was listening, so he's like, dude, they know that I can hear them in here.
We didn't care. Chris never cared.
That made me like Ricky instantly.
Chris never cared. But so you got started in Christian music. You grew up in a church. What kind of church did you grow up in?
Well, the controversy started because I started playing music in a church, because the church I grew up in is actually like a mile from your studio.
Wow.
On the hill, the Church of Christ. And they sing a cappella. So they don't believe that music is a part of your worship. It's more of entertainment. So I would have actually had a better shot of keeping my family happy if I'd started playing in a bar rather than playing music in a church, because they see that's somehow more sacrilegious than playing entertainment in a bar.
Did the pastor say anything to you? Was anything really...
Well, when I started actually playing music, I was out of that church as far as going there. I was going to First Baptist Church. I was kind of going a bunch of places. A lot of my friends had, wanted me to come to church with them, because I didn't really have a church home, because the place I was going, I didn't really feel like I was getting fed. Yeah. So I was going everywhere. Church of God, that's another place that I met you at too. Yeah. But when I started playing Christian music is when some of my family members started expressing their non-approval of that.
Wow.
When you started Christian music.
Yeah. When I started Christian music, I got backlash from my Christian family, which was kind of ironic. But I understood because I understood what they viewed it as. I just didn't agree with it, which is fine. That's kind of how,
So growing up, what church did you end up settling in as a youth guy? Was it at East Valdez?
It was First Baptist Valdez.
First Baptist Valdez. Yeah. Okay. And man, that's pretty cool. So you grew up basically singing in church, and then had to go to another church.
Yeah,
to do the other stuff.
Yeah, I grew up and everybody sang, because it was a cappella. So you either you couldn't like kind of BS your way through it, because if you were off key, you stuck out like a sore thumb. There's no organ or choir to back you up. So I sang, but I didn't really think about that I was going to sing for a living, or that I was going to actually lead worship or anything. Just I was a part of it. And then when I went to First Baptist Church is when the music pastor, Tim Little, kind of sneakingly, I think he knew something that I didn't at the time, and he kind of used his musical ways of encouraging me to try to play in the worship band to tell me that ultimately I sucked at playing bass and I needed to sing.
And then you picked up the guitar too, though, right? You played the acoustic?
I did. That was another one of those things. See, it's a crazy thing when somebody asks how I got started, because I played football and stuff. That's all I did.
Yeah, you were an athlete in high school.
Yeah, I didn't sing. I didn't plan on, I didn't have any dreams of being like a professional musician. I was planning on going to college and playing football. And that summer, when when I felt like music was something I was being called to, I just had to start learning everything. So at age 19, basically, I had to start singing in front of people. Literally that weekend, we were in front of 1,000 people at a youth event. That's first crazy. Time. Yeah, I was super nervous.
So your first time was in front of 1,000 people?
Yeah, they asked me to sing, and 3 days later, and it was one of those things where I literally...
Tim was like, you're second.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And it's one of those things like when you first start singing, and you probably know this too. Like very first time you get super nervous, like that spit builds up in the back of your throat, and halfway through the song you're like trying to sing, and it just catches you.
Choking.
Oh yeah.
That is crazy.
So it wasn't like I nailed it the first time. It was not that great, but I just know I had to learn from there. And move forward.
That is crazy. So the early version of the band that started out of that church had, I mean, you guys put out how many records? I think you did, what, 2 or 1?
We did 2. The first one was with, we had another band name that nobody knew how to pronounce, and hardly anyone knew what it meant.
Oh, wow.
Listen,
we're in a similar boat.
But in defense of that, there was some songs you wrote that were pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I think even at that point. But, so, and then you did, what was it called? Because our locals would know this, the Baby. We call it, what do we call that record? The Baby Face or
I just called it the Baby CD.
Yeah, the Baby CD. It had a baby on the front. And that's
when
when it was, and that one was called 7 Miles, right?
Yeah, that was the first 7 Miles CD.
Yeah, I got you.
I still have that one.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I don't.
There's some, I think it's funny. Listen, it's important to honor that stuff. Like it really is important. And I think this is where in the story, I think things changed. You know, one of the many times it changed for us, right? Because we've been at this a while, and we endured through some pretty interesting changes in Christian music and music in general, I think. And it was around that time I think I met you, and I met the rest of the guys, and you guys really decided to take it seriously.
Yeah.
I think at that point. And at that time in Christian music, there were venues to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we had coffee shops to play. There were churches that were very open to bringing us, plus promoters.
Right.
That really doesn't exist that much these days. That sort of went away. But at that time, when you had churches that didn't have the modern music, they would bring 7 Miles.
Oh, yeah.
Regionally, it was really neat to watch that grow and to be a part of that. That's something I think I'll always be proud of. And it also really, being on the road together that long, I think you cement like permanent relationships.
Yeah. Or you do the opposite.
You hate each other. Yeah, and you hate each other, But that was not the case for us, I don't think. I don't think that was ever the case for us. But I think as a Christian band, I think we did some really, really good things. I think, and we did some stupid things.
Yeah, I know for a fact I had no idea what I was doing. So the very first album we did, it was one of those things where nobody in the band, this is before I met Ricky, nobody in the band played an instrument, that would have been weird. But nobody in the band wrote songs.
Yeah.
And
you just had to do it.
Yeah, so I had to get a guitar.
So you had to write...
Yeah.
So you just had to write something.
Yeah, they just threw it on me. They're like, well, it's up to you because we don't know how to do it.
That's crazy. So it was like, all right, man, we need you to sing. Now you need to write the song.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I need to learn to play the guitar first. But I literally just took a guitar and watched the dude that was right-handed play, and I'm left-handed, so it was like a mirror image, so that helped. And
That's insane.
I saw that, that's a G chord, I can play that, and that's a D chord, and I still don't even know exactly what G, D, and C I play to this day, almost 20 years later. But
that's pretty funny. Well, I think those chords have gotten you pretty far. I'm just thinking out loud. I think you've done okay with your couple of chords. But so, getting back to the Christian music thing, we traveled a lot, and oh wow, we got Jack Russell's outside barking.
That's
I'm
what
sorry.
I'm talking about.
I'm sorry, guys.
Party's here.
It is what it is, guys.
It's always fun with dogs. Man.
I'm not going to edit that out. If you hear it, you heard my Jack Russells. So, anyway, we traveled a ton. I think there were years that, I don't know how many days we were on the road, but it was consecutive. We burned it.
It was a lot. Yeah,
it was a lot, and we learned a lot, man. We learned a lot. I know personally, that's a time that I really, really appreciate, and I loved it. Always thought of that fondly.
You know what's crazy about that? That whole time we were beginning to be a band, and because we were so close by, this was sort of the model for us. Which I know that might be scary now. If somebody, if another band was looking at Elisha, and being like, man, I just want to do what they're doing. be like,
Yeah.
no.
It was,
but
it did get to the point. It did get to the point that we were hardly ever home. We played everywhere.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
But you could look at any Christian happening circular at any
Yeah.
Christian bookstore and
Yeah.
see 7 Miles was somewhere.
Back in the day
Right,
when there were
right.
Christian bookstores, and man,
yeah.
it was a wild time. It really was. It was a wild time.
Christian happenings, is that still a thing?
I don't,
I don't know.
I think everything's just gone digital.
That was like
Yeah.
my Rolling Stones, dude.
I know,
It
man.
was.
And you know, this probably telling on me, but any band worth their salt just steals gigs from other bands.
Right.
That's what they find out where they played, and then they
Oh,
go
yeah.
right on the
That happened to
coattails.
us for years.
So that's what we did. We were like, how do we find out what 7 Miles is doing? Because this was like right before websites.
Yeah,
Right.
it
became
was.
a big thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was.
I think that's, to me, that's smart too. It's like,
Well, if I remember, if I remember correctly, we had somebody that would help us with promoting, right?
Yep.
So we would book the shows, and we had somebody responsible for sending out material, promotional material, handling our payments.
Yeah.
We didn't have like a 18,000 page contract. It was actually, I think it was like 1 page. It was just really simple.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, I remember it being simple.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a great person that helped us.
well, and that might have been one of the things too. Is we just, when Tim got me to start playing too, he literally would bring me to the church every day, and not like to pray and do
But
Bible
teach
study,
you how to
but
run the
teach me how
business.
to run the business.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you need to have this. Like we were
Wow.
doing stuff that record labels were having their bands doing. We weren't even signed or even really
Yeah.
had an album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just as it matured and
it basically became a business,
Yeah.
in a way that's the way things were handled professionally. And it was pretty amazing when
And
you
most
think about
local
it.
bands don't find out about that stuff until you're looking to spend money on somebody to do
So
that.
if
to have
you're in a
mentor
band,
like that's
I mean, if
crazy.
you're in a band now, like even if you're thinking about traveling, and it's important to know that stuff. It's important to know. I mean, our writer wasn't crazy. We weren't doing like only green M&Ms or anything like that. But it was really, it helped us.
Yeah.
It helped us tremendously. And from a independent artist standpoint, we were really ahead of the curve on a lot of things.
Yeah, and I even think I go back to even before we were necessarily ready to do some of the stuff we were doing. I think we were doing a lot of stuff before we were probably ready to do it. Obviously, when you're doing Christian music and you're being influenced by the Lord, it's a little easier too because He can help out with some of those things.
Yeah, there is some supernaturalness to it. Yeah.
But it was one of those things too where it was like as we started to put those things in place, and it's like perception's reality. So we had a contract, we had a van and a trailer, we had merchandise, and nobody else around here really had that at the time. So they see us pull up to a church like that, and they take us just like they do all the acts that were coming out of Nashville and Knoxville and stuff like that. Even though whether we were at that point or not, that's how the churches saw it. Plus, we were local, so it just made it easier.
And from what I remember, we were pretty easy to work with.
Oh yeah.
And over the years, we developed some very good relationship with promoters.
Yep.
Which, if you're an artist listening to this, that's so important to really find people that you trust, even if it's a handful of promoters that you can trust on shows and different things. And we did develop a really good network that way. To this day, I'm still friends with some of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So all right, so we're about to move on from 7 Miles because we're getting to the nitty gritty of the stuff. But towards the end of that stuff, right? Christian music wasn't too kind. At the end to what we were trying to do. The band really didn't need a label per se, because I think independently the band was pretty solid.
Oh yeah.
But at the end of the day, we just did not sound Nashville enough, did we?
Well, yeah, not Nashville enough, or not
Chris Tomlin-ish.
yeah,
Tomlin-ish.
not Chris Tomlin.
Yeah, whatever.
I think I said a cuss word in there on
Yeah.
accident.
All right, I'm gonna have to edit that. It's okay.
But it was. What's funny too is I go back and listen to those records, and I used to try to sing like that.
It's the worst.
I'm not a
kills
fan.
me.
Yeah, I hate it. I
Kills
mean,
me.
I can't. Now that I go back, like if I could do anything in my entire life, like past marriage, all that kind of stuff,
Yep.
I would change the way I sang on my first 2 records.
It is, well, okay, let's talk about that. You know, because I'm a producer, right? I think over the years, I've been very concerned about being too influential on people's music. Yeah. I don't ever want the band or the songwriter to sound like, oh, that sounds like Ricky Rodriguez with such and such.
Right.
You know, and that still exists in the industry. A lot of producers do it. You know how it is.
Oh, yeah.
But in our case, we just happened to run across the guy that really did want to change everything.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the day, it wasn't who you were vocally, but it wasn't who we were or are as a band or as a group, you know. And I think we were too naive at the time. You know, maybe we didn't understand exactly what we were getting into. But the bottom line was, I'm not ashamed of that stuff, so to speak. But if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have learned, right? Like we wouldn't have, if we did not go through that situation, we definitely, we would be different today if we had not gone through that.
Well, I mean, I think overall, I mean, I kind of look at it like, I still think that your studio stuff for you was going the direction where you are now. Either way, like you were just in it, like from that little board to where you are now. But as far as like the other things with our ministry at the time and the band, if we hadn't done the Nashville thing and had, you know,
we wouldn't have learned.
No, we wouldn't have. I definitely wouldn't have done what I've done since then.
Yep.
And you know,
and listen, the band got signed. We got signed by pretty much like Christian music legends, John and Dino Elefante.
Yep.
They had like a Christian imprint they wanted to do. They had produced bands that growing up I loved, like, oh my God, like Guardian, and just I mean they had worked on things that I was just like, literally, I was like, I was so happy.
That's legit.
And yeah, man, it was great. It was great.
Oh, it was weird.
But
too.
it was so weird. That was some weird meetings, man. But they were, I can't say anything negative. They were really sweet to us.
Yeah, they were.
They really were. And they did the traditional thing. They sat on us, and basically they couldn't figure out really, it turns out they couldn't really figure out what they were doing with the label. But regardless, we got sat on, which means what the labels do is like, hey, we just need you to write for your record, and then when we get ready, we'll let you know. Yeah. So all we did, we spent a year just writing song after song, recording and traveling, and then it just eventually fizzled out. And I think, I remember this because I remember talking to you about this. I felt like at that point, I felt like it was your time, right? Like, yeah, I think we had a discussion.
Oh,
Did we have a discussion?
Oh yeah, you had the discussion with me because it was one of those things where I was,
and I don't think I was in the band at the time, or it may have been towards the end. I wasn't sure.
I think you had just stopped because of
the
maybe
kids,
having Gabe too, and some just
little
recording.
Did we know, we had a lot of, my wife had a lot of health stuff,
right? Yeah.
So, but I remember us having a conversation going, it was time to, go to Nashville and see what was going to happen.
Yep.
So, and boy, did some things happen. I love it.
Yep.
This is awesome. So, at some point, you decided, I'm going to do country music. I want to know how you got to that point. Because let me tell you, we got some hate mail.
I'm sure we did.
We got some hate messages.
We got everything from hate messages to accusations that I was now a pot smoker, the drug dealer. To, I can't even. There was a ton of stuff that we got accused of just because I moved to Nashville the first time. That was the first thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when I decided to do my first solo thing that wasn't Christian music, that's when we really got the hate mail.
Can you believe that the Christian community would be negative?
Yeah, I believe they can.
Can you
I think
believe
it probably has some valid correlation.
Can you believe a Christian would wish ill upon somebody else?
I mean, clearly moving to Nashville means that you take part.
You have sold your soul
in satanic
to
rituals.
Satan.
I did some spirit cooking as soon as I got there.
You wrote some. I remember because we had always kept in touch, obviously, through this stuff, and then you ended up signing. You signed a deal With what was the name of that deal?
It was
that label?
Yeah, it was Golden Music.
Yep.
And I moved out there and I started working as a personal trainer, and I was just writing songs. Like, I was around so much music that I just
inspired.
started writing. I was still writing Christian songs, but I was also writing songs about love, about hate. I mean, I wasn't writing songs about like drinking beer and having sex with a bunch of girls or anything like most of these guys
trucks.
do.
On this show, it's called Banging Chicks.
What did you say? What did you say on the tour, Benton? With the high up shorts. What did you
Shorty shorts.
The shorty shorts.
Yeah.
He wasn't writing shorty shorts.
Yeah, I wasn't writing any songs about little girls in shorty shorts sitting on my tailgate or with their feet up on the dash.
You was just writing music.
I was just writing like love songs. Some of them could have been interpreted towards God or towards a girl, whatever, and I couldn't do anything with them because when you play a worship show, it's hard to like say, "Hey, this is a song I wrote about love. You ready to hear it?"
Yeah.
Here it goes. So I put them all together, and my biggest influences in music in general. The three biggest influence was Third Day, but basically Mac Powell because of his vocal, Edwin McCain, and Travis Tritt. Three completely different genres, but all
totally
same kind of singer. So I had gotten a hold of the guitar player for Edwin McCain, and I sent him these songs. I have no idea why I did it to this day. Like, I've never been that guy. Like any famous person I met, I barely even talk to him. I just don't. I don't do that. But I sent it to him, and not thinking anything about it, he sends it back and said he played it for Edwin too, and wanted to play it for his producer, which his producer's the one who ended up being the owner of Golden Music. And
who was the producer?
Noel Golden.
Okay, all right.
Was the producer.
Golden
Music.
Yeah.
Okay.
What a name.
Yeah.
I know it.
So he heard that he got the songs got to him.
Yeah, and he heard them all. I sent him the Christian songs. I sent him the country songs. I mean, and he's a Canadian guy. He did a lot of stuff with
excellent.
Matchbox 20,
He's a great
Guns N'
producer.
Roses.
Yeah.
And he just, they called me one day, and him and an investor said they're starting a label, and they wanted me to be on it. And strangely enough, flew me from Nashville, Tennessee, back to the Carolinas to Greenville to record the first record. So
yeah, baby.
Wow.
Kind of didn't even really. I mean, I guess I technically had to leave because I had to get inspired to do the stuff that I did. Yeah. But I ended up coming full circle.
Yeah.
I remember listening to that, loving it. I remember listening to that record and totally digging it.
Well, that one it will always be special to me because it was Edwin's band that played on the whole record. Like, it was basically Edwin's band and me singing.
It's great, man. Great record.
One of those. I saw Edwin play 100 times in concert, and now I have his band playing on my album.
Kidding.
Like,
man.
Dream come true.
Freak out central, man.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. That was unbelievable. And I remember, again, being extremely proud of you. I do remember that. So let's move on. I want to talk about the song Carolina.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's talk about that song. Some of y'all may have heard of this song. Okay. Now, the version y'all have heard sounds like the music of Nickelback with a dude with a tried country accent singing the song. Right? I'm not kidding. That's what it sounds like to me. So let's talk about that song, Carolina. Because to this day, the only version I refuse to acknowledge, I won't acknowledge any other version but yours, period.
Right.
I've seen you perform the song hundreds of times, and I'm a little partial to you anyway. I recognize that, but let's talk about that song, because I think for our musicians and our songwriters, this is a story. Yeah. This is the mother of all stories. Yeah. I cannot wait for you to tell us a story.
All right. So when I started working with Golden Music, we were in the studio recording this album, and one of the managers, the guys that was helping with the label, brought this rock band into the studio in downtown Greenville, and they were playing a show or something. And they heard me sing, and they're like, "Man, you sound awesome. We got this song that everybody loves that we wrote it. It's called Carolina, but we've always thought that if a country guy could do it, we'd love for you to make it a country song. We think you'd do a killer job with it." And I said, "Well, I mean, y'all are country guys too, like sounding country. So wouldn't you ever consider putting it out country?"
Weren't they being recorded by Nikki Sixx at the time?
Yes.
Yeah, they were like a rock band.
Yeah, they were like
Nikki
Daltrey.
Sixx is the bass player for Motley Crue. So he was producing like a rock band. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, they were literally a rock band.
They were not even thinking about that.
No,
right?
I went and saw them. I mean, I got to know the guys. We actually became good friends for a while. It was I saw them in concert, and they literally were like your average like rock band, like spiky hair.
Yeah.
Now that's country music too, but at the time,
Looked like they dressed at the Buckle.
Right.
Remember Buckle?
Yeah.
They would dress at the Buckle,
Oh,
go
boy,
go
the
play
Buckle.
shows.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they, I even said, would you ever consider putting this out country? And they said, no, man, we'd be sellouts if we did that. We're a rock band. I was like, okay, well, I'll take a stab at it.
Yeah.
So we redid some stuff and changed the key and made it fit more my voice and changed the rhythm so it's a little more country, or at least like I always compared it to like the beat and the feel of like Dobie Gray's Drift Away, like just a feel good song.
Yeah, timeless.
Yeah.
It's very timeless.
Yeah,
feel.
that's the best word I could think of to describe it. And
Yeah.
then we recorded the song, took it to Nashville. People flipped out. They loved it. We did a 127 major market radio station tour, flew all over the country.
How much money do you think was spent on that, on just pushing that?
I'd say $250,000 at least.
Okay, so you got
Good night.
So yeah, this is on the major label secular side of the world. This is a very different world than the Christian music world.
Yeah.
Big boy pants on that side, basically is what it
Yeah,
is. So you record the single, right? They decide Nashville loves it, and
Yep.
then they're going to put you doing the promotion on the radio tour.
Yeah, it's
right?
like full-fledged getting ready to...
So explain for the audience what, like, say, like if I owned Joe Schmo's radio station, what would you do? Like, what would happen?
You basically you set up these appointments to come in, and it depends. Sometimes it would be like a pizza party for listeners, and they'd have like 10 or 15 people in a little area they've got built, kind of like about the size of the studio. And you just talk to people and play some songs, and you just get to know people, and that's how they say they get a feel for whether your song's going to add or not.
And I'm assuming with your personality, you probably killed it.
Well, it was great for me because a lot of times I go in with just me and a guitar, and they said, believe it or not, in Nashville, Music City, most of the artists always had to take accompaniment because they were never confident enough to just sit with a guitar and play, which blew my mind.
Are you telling me they would like play with a band or sing to a soundtrack?
Sometimes to a soundtrack, or at least if it was a guy or a girl who couldn't play acoustic well, they'd have somebody play for them, or have another guitar player play to make it
crazy.
sound prettier.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So they liked me because it was easy. I come in
So-
with a guitar, sit down
So
and play.
audience, if you haven't met Benton ever, but if I urge you to meet him. He's one of the nicest humans you'll ever meet.
We'll have his phone number in the show notes.
Yeah, but I'm just saying he's very approachable personality, and he's the kind of guy you want. You would like if I were a label, I would feel perfectly confident having you in that situation. So okay, go ahead. You're at the radio station. You're jamming.
Yeah. So we play all these stations, and this is right around the time that Carrie Underwood's song, I think, not Blown Away. It was maybe the one where she's like keying the dude's car. I don't remember the name of the song.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, know exactly what you're talking about.
That song was coming out the same time that, like, I was officially at the place where I signed a record deal in Nashville. So I was up there with the big boys. I had a 30-foot banner in the middle of the CMA Fest where, like, I literally saw.
I remember that.
I saw
remember
Jake
that.
Owen walk into the room and look at that, like, who in the F is that?
I remember that.
Like, how did
you remember? I
How
remember
did
that.
this dude's face get in here?
My banner's not that big.
Exactly. No, it was the biggest banner in the entire building. It
Wow.
was insane. So, like, we were doing it, and radio stations were digging it, and they literally said, we're going to add it. And they said that Carrie Underwood's single that first week had 24 ads first week. The ones that had already committed to add ours was at 56.
What? Wow.
So it would have charted in the
Double.
top 10 probably. Very first. Nobody would have ever heard of him, and it'd been like, oh my gosh, who's this guy? All of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then
That's crazy.
reality sets in about how the music business works, and my label, for all kinds of reasons that would probably take in a whole another podcast, shut down. Had nothing to do with me or the single or anything I did personally.
So what state were you in?
I was in, I was kind of back and forth because of the studio in Greenville, but I was basically still in Nashville at the time. The label closed, and when the label closes, if you're working in a major market with country music or things, rock music even, there's a certain thing that's set up to where it's not payola like it used to be, where you pay radio stations, but they do it in a different way. And if you don't have the label support, they won't play the single.
Absolutely.
So I went from 56 ads to 0. One ad. Actually, there's one station that started playing it just because Captain Jack didn't care. And he's like, screw y'all, I'm playing it anyway.
Really?
So I charted like 48
Yeah.
just because of that one guy playing the song over and over in New Jersey. It's pretty awesome. But
So what ended up happening to
Well,
that song?
when the label closed, we started talking to other labels. I met with a bunch of people, and in the meantime, one of the labels I met with was really interested, and I went in the same day, and I saw the guys from Parmalee.
Yep. Who wrote that song originally?
Yeah, who were the rock band. I'm like, why are these dudes in Nashville? And they were walking out of the same building I was walking into. Well, come to find out, they were meeting with the same label that was meeting with me. And when the owner found out that they own the publishing to that song, he saw dollar signs in the song because he knew we had already done all the legwork to get the single put out. So all they had to do is put a new stamp on it and just put a pretty little story on it, and boom, they got a single. And that's
what they did.
Huh.
Yeah, so the rock band became a country band overnight. They ended up signing them instead of me, and I get that part. Like, I'm a business guy. I understand business completely. It's not supposed to be fair. That's not, it's not. It's not about that. So I get that part. And then sure enough, 3 months later, after they literally told stations not to mention who it was singing Carolina, because they had already, people knew that I recorded the song.
Yeah, yeah.
So they just went back in and cut it very similar to the way we cut it.
Yes,
put
absolutely.
It out, and they just started playing Carolina. So a lot of my fans were calling the radio station asking for Carolina, and they were playing it. It just wasn't me, and they didn't know. Some of them didn't know the difference.
Man.
Wow.
Oh man.
So smart marketing on their part, on the label's part, like So that song went number one country music for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is boys, girls, that is the business in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we're going to take this a little more positively after that.
Sure.
Because I think
Let's bring it back up a bit.
Because here's the bottom line. When I talk to anybody, especially young artists, and I get to work a lot with the studio, I get a lot of questions. I get like, man, how does this work? Well, it's really simple actually. You release good music, you gig as much as you can, and develop a fan base, right? You've got to develop it. You've got to work it. There's a lot of platforms now. You've got YouTube, you've got Apple Music, you got iTunes, you got Spotify. There's all these different avenues.
Yeah.
And my favorite example to talk to people about is you. And the reason is because all that garbage doesn't matter with you. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why it doesn't matter. And I knew it never would, because at the end of the day, you gig.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
Yeah.
You've never stopped gigging. Ever. Yeah. He's never stopped gigging.
Yeah.
He's never stopped writing, and he's never stopped putting out content.
Right.
And you've always stayed relevant. Always. In fact, if anything, I think it helped you because it got you in front of people that you normally wouldn't have been in front of. And then they could just fall in love with you. We just got off of a tour this past weekend. I saw your fans.
Right.
They love you.
Yeah.
And they're going to be with you regardless. Labels are great, but you know what? It's a season. And you know what was funny about that season? I remember labels signing people that looked exactly like you.
Oh, I got
Do you remember
stories.
that?
Well, I can tell you a story. If you want one for the podcast, I'll give you one.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So I met with, right after my label closed, I met with another label. I'm trying to decide how far to go into this one without just really literally saying names. I'll say some names, people can figure it out.
That's fine.
So I met with this label and played for them. Very, very good label. Reba McEntire was on the label. Justin Moore was on the label. I don't know if he still is. And they said, we love you. We'd love to put out the album, like do something with you. And the only thing is we're a boutique label, even though we're in Nashville. It'll be $250,000 that you'd have to pay us. And then we'll match it. So that's great, right? Like, you'll have $500,000. I'm like, yeah, except for the fact that I don't have $250,000 laying around. So, long story short on that part, I say I can't do it. Well, 3 weeks later, they announced that they signed this artist out of Georgia. And I went and looked at his website, and the dude was wearing like a wife beater and cut up jeans, nothing super fancy. Good songwriter. But they signed Brantley Gilbert.
And he looked exactly like you.
To take it to another level that nobody knows about, they took him to some of the same places I did my photo shoots that I had already given them photos of and dressed him just like me.
Whoa.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I have pictures I can do side by side, A-B. Yeah. I didn't talk about it for the longest time because I didn't want to be that guy. No, it's crazy.
That is like, other than being a new level of devious,
Yeah.
it's so sad. It's kind of funny.
You know, it's
but
it is funny, but you know what? That's the way people
Yeah.
not to call them those people, but that's the way they are.
Sure. I mean, and that's why you have to, in the business, like any of the new artists I've talked to who ask me about how I get started and stuff, like I always throw in that part about be yourself and the stuff that you have, hold on to it tight because people will steal it in a heartbeat. I'm not talking about even a song. Like it's hard to steal.
You're talking about your business.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about and from what I understand, and you've always been very careful with your booking.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
Like you're still super involved with your booking.
Yeah, I try to stay involved. My management, my book, all that stuff, I try to keep my hands on because people will take advantage of it.
They have to rip it from you, from what I've understood, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've had a couple managers want to. I mean, I've even talked to Doc McGee. We've talked about working together. And I just said I can't give up 25%
Okay, so who did Doc McGee work with? Just
Doc McGee's
drop
like
some
the
names,
legendary
it's
manager
okay.
of Kiss, manages Darius Rucker now. Super awesome dude. I met with him a couple of times. I have nothing bad to say about the guy, but I just said I can't give away 25% of everything I've worked for almost 20 years when there's no guarantee you're going to do anything.
Yep.
Like if you bring me $500,000, you can have 40%. I don't care.
Yeah.
That is, but that's the business in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are hundreds, thousands of artists that we'll never hear about that have fallen to that system.
Oh, yeah.
We toured with one this past week with Eric,
Yep.
who I loved. And there's like, that's just the darkest side of the business. But I think the thing that's always protected you and your longevity is that, bro, you just gig.
Yeah.
You gig, you work, and then eventually you got that show.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
I think that it's kind of like if a lot of these artists put all their investment into one thing happening, like if it's a record deal or if it's an album they had to spend more money than they knew what to do with on.
Yeah.
Like they put all their eggs into that basket. And then when it doesn't work, they're like, well,
That's
crap,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
it must be it because we tried, you know, but I've always looked at it like I'm going into this field where there's so many people doing it. It's so shady on the Christian and country side when you get to the label
it's even
side.
worse on the Christian
Oh
side.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely,
I
it's
always,
worse.
yeah, I always just have to just plan that I'm going to do this thing, knowing that it may or may not work, and if it doesn't, what am I going to do immediately after to keep going so
Yeah.
I don't become one of those statistics? It's just
Well,
There's so many more targets
I think,
than people are fed.
and
you
to
know?
and to bring this back to faith, right? Because, you sing songs about everything, and we were on the road, together this past couple of weeks, a little bit, and which I really enjoyed, by the way.
it was fun.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Me too.
But
Hashtag me too.
but it was sort of like a storyteller's thing, VH1 storytellers acoustic kind of situation where you were telling stories about some songs.
Yeah.
And you were talking about some of the songs that you can't sing in church. I love that. Can you talk to us about that? I love that. That's so good.
Yeah. What's like, and I said this every night of the tour, and I usually say this even in the bars.
It needs to be said.
Yeah, it's like you grow up singing in church, and it's fun. Like you enjoy it, you get to worship, like you get to experience all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
But a lot of the songs that you even are fans of growing up, like the songs you remember that are legendary in your mind, are usually the ones that aren't that happy. Like it's usually the ones that either make you like depressed beyond all means, or makes you want to go drink. Whatever those things are that pull out all the emotions you can't talk about in church.
Right.
So, one of the reasons I started doing country music was because it's one of those genres of music where I can tell people, you know what, I've had a really effed up month. Like I went through a divorce, or I don't have any money, or I can sing about that stuff. Well, nobody wants to hear that in church on Sunday.
Sure.
Like they don't want to hear a song about
So,
got a divorce yesterday.
I love. If I had a Bible, I would have thumped it every time you said that on that tour, because Mac Powell said some very, very similar things.
Yeah.
The fact is, you're a creative person, right? And I do think church and the Christian culture struggles with our creatives. Period.
Yeah.
It's just they just do. It is what it is. I have seen it time after time. And there's pockets, we see pockets in the Christian world of some amazing creativity. but you're only going to see that from churches that could sustain that.
Yeah.
Like they've got the resources to put out their music, or they've cut out their little edge of the world. Like John Mark McMillan is a good example. He has like cut out something.
Yeah.
You know, the thing I love about what he's doing is he's going to mainstream clubs and doing his thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he does his thing. And, you know, and it's funny, you know, we joke about you getting hate messages, and I got some of that. I still get some of that, by the way.
Nice.
I don't know why, but, you know,
it's just my annual
it's just funny.
management.
It's just funny. I laugh at anything that I get. That stuff totally rolls off my back.
It used to bother me
I don't
beyond
care.
all get out when you would tell me about one of those
It's
things.
just so funny, man. And I don't care, but I really don't. But I think that what you're saying is people are too scared to say.
Yeah.
They just are. And some people don't want to hear it, man. Some people just do not want to hear something from somebody from the Christian world saying, I can't do this anymore.
Well, how many sermons have you heard on Lamentations that don't end with and it's all okay?
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like
Right.
you say like John Mark, some other guys are taking who they are into what we Christians would call the secular realm.
Into the world.
The world.
Yeah.
But if we really want to get real, we have to bring that back in. And there are pockets of places that are doing that.
Yeah.
But those pockets tend to be smaller.
Like,
you know, like if you're a church about numbers or gathering in tons of people,
I mean, honestly,
you got to axe that.
If that culture wanted to be changed in the Christian world, you would stop listening to every Christian radio station.
Yeah.
Right.
You would literally break it there and watch it. You'll watch it change. But, you know, the fact is a lot of the label guys that were in Nashville in the Christian world back in the day are at some of the bigger churches now, running the music departments. And we're starting to see sounds change and different things. And, you know, it's not something I'm proud of, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's kind of too like that. Before we go off of the John Mark McMillan thing too, one thing I noticed is with him, when he first started, even until that song became really big,
Yeah, it's a
nobody
big worship
really
song.
knew who he was except the funny part is he was kind of like, and I don't mean this from the musical side, but he was kind of like the Dream Theater of Christian music, because all the Christian artists knew about him and they loved him, even the big ones.
yes,
David Crowder,
yes,
all
we all
those
knew
guys.
about him. Yep.
But the fans who actually could support him and make him a living had no idea. That showed you that those people, even at that level, wanted what he has. That is where I've tried to do my music, even with this new record that we did in LA that we can talk about later too.
Yes, we will.
I don't even want it to be like, I definitely don't want to be bro country. That makes me want to throw up even saying the word. And I don't.
It sounds like throw up when you say it.
It does. It really does. It feels like
Country.
it. Yeah. It just ruined my coffee. But I don't even want to necessarily be country, because I love country music, but I don't think there's a lot of country music on the radio.
No, there's
So
not.
I just want to be me, whatever genre that is. And I got fussed at in Nashville all the time. You got to pick a genre. You got to be able to explain exactly who you
I
are.
hate
It's
that
like,
stuff,
well,
man.
I grew up listening to Motown, rock and roll, rap, and country. So what do you call that?
Well, I think longevity-wise, you're always going to be healthier being true to who you are.
Yeah, because you're going to evolve. You're going to
Yep.
change. I've changed so much. Just when I did the first album, when I met Ricky is when I had my biggest change, because
we
he
came
added
from,
the-
we came from like two opposite hemispheres.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I was like, knew all this indie stuff and, you know, and tell you what, man, that you still are really like a wonderful balance for me. I think that's why we just get along, man.
Yeah.
Like, we are a good balance.
Well, it's like you and Jimmy. You're like the devil and he's like Jesus. It's
a
like
little
perfect
bit like that.
combination.
That's why Jimmy's here. He's my balance.
I don't know about all that. I mean, the devil part, sure, but I'm not sure.
but seriously though, like you know, this is why I love that you're here with us, because I think people need to hear what it's like.
Yeah.
Like for real. Like
not
a
easy.
dude doing it. You know,
And that's that's something else that musicians need to hear for sure. Even fans though, it's not easy. And the cool thing is I know for a fact that everybody in this room on this podcast has went through the same things as far as people don't understand what you have to do from the time they see you in concert one year to the next year and all the stuff that happened in between.
Oh, boy.
Nope.
It'd blow their mind.
Dude, just in not only dealing with the business side, but family, like the balance of family,
Being away from home.
yeah, and the balance of surrounding yourself with good people,
Yeah.
which is honestly probably one of the most important things.
Well, Ricky taught me something that I have always still stuck to, and that's and it's not being snobby, but he always talked about like he has a close knit group of people. Like,
To this day, I do.
yeah, and I'm friends with a lot of people, but I'm only really friends with a very small group of people.
Yeah. And the older you get, the smaller that.
And
group becomes.
they're, and I'm still that to this day. In fact, that I do feel like it gets smaller because, it's like you are who you hang out with. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And that stink and that trash can get on you.
Yeah. it
And
can.
I'm just not going to associate with that. I have drawn such a hard line on certain things. Now, I'm not talking about, listen, don't think that I'm thinking, oh, this person smokes. No, some of the closest people to me smoke
Yeah.
and drink. I've got some friends that are not believers that I love to death.
Absolutely.
Because they are honest, man. They are honest, and I know I get no BS.
Right.
And I would rather have that any day.
Sure.
I just do. It's
Or just common kindness.
yes.
You know?
And again, when you're in the music business, there are phonies, and it's on everything, man. And when you find good people, you hang on to those people as tight as you can. You find that bass player. That bass player may not be an A-level musician. Who gives a rip? If he's a B player and a killer dude, killer dude trumps A player any day.
For multiple reasons.
Any day.
Traveling on the road all
Yep.
the way to, just being in business with somebody like that. I would take somebody that isn't quite qualified compared to another guy, because that person can always get better, but that person's always going to be a douchebag. So
That's correct.
Yep.
That is
and
so
that is
true.
That is
That's
a common
so true.
theme. That is a common thing I think we'll always hit home
Yeah.
here. So
It is hard
let's-
to relearn being a jerk.
So let's go on to the TV show,
Okay.
because we've touched on this a little bit, but
Yeah.
I really did fanboy. We would watch, and I know I was very proud. We watched every time you were on. But how did you get on America's Got Talent?
Just like everything else in my career, by absolute fluke accident. I was sitting at home one day, and I got a phone call from a friend who works in the industry. She used to work for World Star, and then she started doing her own thing. And so she's one of those people who have their hands in everything. Like, you never know what she's doing.
Yeah.
And so she said, "Hey, I got, would you like to audition for America's Got Talent?" I said, "Nope." She literally
So
sat
you were
there.
just like, nope.
Yeah, I literally said no. She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm
That's
not."
funny.
I said, "I'm not. I know how this thing works. I'm older now." I said, "I've been doing this a long time. I go stand in line all day long. There's 5,000 people, and they pick 15 of them just to get to go to the actual tryouts. So I would be more apt to get $100 scratch off at the store,
Yeah.
like just mathematically odds."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, it's not like that. It's not the cattle call thing. This is like a special thing. Like, the producers are looking for people. So come to find out, they, out of all these auditions you do, they actually get most of their pull from going out and finding people.
Wow.
Just makes it the appearance that you're going to audition.
Okay.
So they do take some people from it, but
I
it's
didn't know
not
that.
much.
I didn't know that.
And
Okay.
most people don't. And I said, "Well, I mean, I guess I'll do it if I don't have to stand in line all day." She said, "Actually, it's on Skype. So they'll call you tonight, and you'll play for them online, and then they'll tell you yes or no."
Is that
so-
when Jackson?
Yes. So I
So
got off the
Jackson's
phone.
his oldest child,
Yeah,
by the way.
Jackson was 2 at the time.
Yep.
And I honestly didn't think, I was literally like that guy. Like, there's no way I'm going to get on this show. I'm a decent singer that doesn't know how to play guitar, and I will be standing there the whole season. So I'm not going to get on it. So I'm literally don't care. Went out to eat, came home, threw some sweats on. They called, workout clothes,
Really?
pick up my guitar, and they're like, "Okay, what do you want to sing for us?" I don't know. What do you want to hear? Like, I just didn't care. It was like I wasn't prepared.
So what was your audition song?
I actually did one of my songs. I think I did Remember first.
Oh yeah.
And then I did like an Evan McCain song. I didn't do like popular music either. I didn't.
You just did the stuff you were comfortable doing.
I literally played stuff that I thought I could get through for the 15 minutes of the audition or whatever.
Sure.
And the whole time in the background, my son is screaming and running around. Like we hadn't decided to put him in another room. So
my God.
literally in the middle of it, I can't see. I'm not paying attention because I'm singing. But at some point in time in the middle of Remember, he takes his diaper off.
What?
Butt naked, and he slings it right over my shoulder as I'm playing. Like I felt something, but I didn't realize it till I looked up. The diaper's on the floor.
Oh my God, that's great.
So after I saw that, I was like, "Yeah, I'm definitely not."
It's over. They just saw Kid Wiener.
Yeah, they just
It's over.
saw my son's pee-pee, and now I got to
Kid butt.
Yeah.
They just saw Kid butt. It's over.
So they said, "Thanks, we'll call you back." And I was like, "Sure, you will." And
They
he goes,
probably wrote
Sure you will.
that. They probably wrote that on your notes, Benton.
"Oh, I'm
They
sure
were
they
like,
did."
Goodbye forever.
Southern redneck accent.
Child's pee-pee.
Whoa, weird.
So they literally 30 minutes later, I get a call back from my friend again, and she said, "It went well, yeah." I said, "Well, not really." And I told her what happened. She said, "Well, it must have done okay because they called me back and they said they want you to come to the actual audition in New Jersey."
So you had to go. You had to fly to New Jersey.
Yeah, that was the one where I officially had to play in front of all the judges and a crowd.
Who were the judges at the time? Because I know it changes.
It was Howard Stern. It was his last year. Whoop, whoop. Yep, I was nervous and excited about
Baba
that.
Booey.
Heidi Klum, Mel B, and Howie Mandel.
Man.
Yeah.
Which one of those were they? Did you actually get to meet those guys, or were they even around?
At first I didn't. As the show went on and there was less people on the show, we talked to them quite a bit. I talked to Howard or Heidi more.
He liked you.
Yeah, Howard.
He liked
Howard
you.
was.
He liked you because you were real.
Yeah,
which is what he would appreciate.
Yeah, and it blew my mind because I went into it thinking same thing I did when I auditioned. It's like I'm a dude standing here playing guitar.
I had a secret dream that he would have you on his show.
Well, that almost happened not too long ago.
I would have loved to, dude. If you need to get on that show.
I think I can still do it.
He number one, he would love you. Number one, just because the style of music you do, he digs.
Yeah.
And
Like
number
he just-
2, you were on Welcome to the Bomb House first.
This is true.
Don't name drop me because I would be scared. But because just let me enjoy the fanboy moment of you being on Howard. But but you did get to hang out with all those guys and all that stuff at some point, I guess.
Yeah, I did. But another thing that a lot of people don't know is when you audition, you play the song and then they say yes or no, which everybody knows. The thing they don't tell you is they pick close to 1,000 people that they say yes to.
Whoa.
So the judges, I mean, sometimes it's 3 yeses, 1 no, whatever, but
Yeah.
they take all those people and then they say, okay, well, we'll let you know. I was like, let me know what? They all said yes. They said, well, yeah, but the way this works is even though they all said yes, we only picked 300 of the 1,000.
Wow.
Son of a gun.
Yeah, so for 3 months, I had to sit at home, not tell anybody I auditioned, not just keep playing my music. And
I just got hints from you.
Yeah. I mean, I told people that were close. I knew.
I already knew, but I didn't want to. I didn't say.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't even say. I think I may have said something to Tyson, and then she was just like, "Oh, you're just gonna love Howard," blah blah blah, and she was right. I enjoyed it because I never watched the show until you were on it.
Yeah, I didn't either. That's the crazy part.
It's the number one. Well, it's the number one summer show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a huge show. People don't realize that, but it's a monstrous show.
That's a good rule of thumb for any show. Just don't watch it until you're on it.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, but it's. I did not realize how big it was, but it was a monstrous
Huge
show.
deal.
Yeah, and this was the
show.
10th anniversary, so it was even bigger that year because they were.
I had no
celebrating
idea it had been running that long.
Yeah, the
already.
network. That's the network's cash cow.
Yeah.
It
Right.
turns out
Oh,
the network
absolutely.
loves that show.
Well, it's the one fan. It's like what Wheel of Fortune used to be. Like it's that one show that everybody in the family watches. Doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter the skin color. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
because
I gave up. I gave up on American Idol the year that Daughtry got voted off.
Yeah.
Like I was cussing. I was mad because I was like, Chris Daughtry was my idol. And then, of course, I gave up after that season.
And I found out stuff about all that too. I found so much about the music business or the music industry and the TV from doing the show.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
It would blow your mind. And most of it, luckily, I can talk about because our contract with America's Got Talent wasn't like all the other ones where you were bound to secrecy.
Oh, my God.
Or face.
Kelly Clarkson just now finished her agreement.
Yeah, man.
With that American Idol contract. Just now. And
Yeah.
what year was she on? 10 years?
Yeah, at least.
Over 10 years ago. Still tied to that contract. And she's been so vocal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of drama.
Wasn't she the first?
Yeah,
first
man.
one?
Yeah.
Powerhouse vocal, man.
Her and
To this
Justin-
day.
Her and Justin.
Guarini.
Yeah, man,
You know,
and
it's fun- he
she-
followed me when I was on the show. Like,
Really?
we actually talk now. Mr.
Really?
Dr. Pepper himself. Yeah.
Wowee.
That's crazy. But
Wowee.
Kelly, you know,
she's amazing.
Kelly wouldn't have made the show, the modern version of that show. But, you know, of course, I think the show's quit and come back. But
Yeah.
she wouldn't have made the modern version of the show because it got so about the look and it got so focused on other things other than the actual talent.
Well, it followed the music industry. That's what the
Yeah.
music
Correct.
industry's
Yeah.
doing now. It's
Yeah.
more
I
about
mean,
the
Kelly-
image. They can fix your vocals, and
Kelly's a beast, man. I mean, I love how she's not shy.
one of the best. I'll be willing to put her up there with
Oh, absolutely.
all the best female
powerhouse,
vocals, just
man.
vocalists in general.
Yeah, she's a powerhouse and really did benefit from that show.
Yeah.
You know, so let's talk about after the show. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about life for you after that show. Like what things changed. I know you were in New York for a long time, right?
Close to 3 months, I was living in Manhattan basically because
A Southern boy in Manhattan.
oh man,
I can't imagine that.
It was fun. It wasn't bad because we were working a lot. Like that's another thing
were
about
busy.
the show is, you know, if you watched me on the show, that one little segment where they show that like 30-second clip of me and my son at the zoo or us at the house.
Yeah.
That was 14 hours a day for 4 weeks worth of taping that they have us do. Like we literally it was like a movie every day. And we all had to sit in this holding place at Radio City Music Hall in these chairs. They had food for us, drinks, and then TV. We could go to the coffee shop, but we had to come straight back and just sit there until there's like 20 producers, and they could be like, "Oh, let's take Benton up to the pier wherever they get the hot dogs. Staten Island, is that it?
Yeah.
Let's take him up there and do this stuff they never use. Like I recorded so much stuff nobody ever
Really?
saw.
Wow.
They just wanted the material.
Yeah, sure.
So they could put it together as a show matures.
They just wanted options.
Yeah, so and that weeded out a lot of people. Like I had a friend who's still a good friend of mine, and he just couldn't handle the stress. It was stressful.
See, people don't think about that. People
they
don't
just
think about
you walk in, sing, and then you're
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
But
You
it's,
can go stir crazy in
Oh.
a situation like that.
yeah, I mean, and it was good too. I think part of the reason they did it was they don't want to get to the end of a season or even the middle of the season and have some dude that's going to freeze up because he just can't take it.
Sure.
So they put extra pressure on you to do
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
fast so they can. They know when they get to the finale, they're going to have people that are going to work like clockwork. Because at the end of the day, they know it's your career, but they don't care. This is about
Yes.
their TV
This is
show.
the
Yeah, it's
television
about
show.
the viewers.
Yeah.
It's really about the numbers.
So they, that kind of wrapped up almost a whole year to start to finish. And I was still playing shows during this time.
Yep.
So I'd come home.
Never stopped.
And have shows. And I'd turn around. And I even told them one time, I said, I have a show in Louisiana. I said, I can't not go to it. I have a contract. So I got to go play. So they flew me to Louisiana. I played the show, flew straight
came right
back
back.
to New York.
No kidding.
Wow. So that's cool. At
yeah.
least they, you know.
They work with you, especially if they know basically, because they knew with me from the time I said no to the first audition that I was doing it because I wanted to. It's good for my family, but
Yeah.
I didn't really care. Like if,
Yeah.
if they said you're going home if you don't do this, I'd be like, oh, see you later. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be that guy.
Right.
But after the show, I mean, instantly, as soon as I got past like the semifinals, I started getting a bunch of more phone calls for booking
For other
shows and
things
stuff
and-
like that. People wanted to go ahead
Like,
and get me.
like I've always tried to explain to people, like, you know, I get asked a lot, well, you know, how much do you think the show helped you? I think it's not so much you needed the help because you were already established. I think if anything, it probably opened you up some different markets and probably the quality of things were probably better.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, the venues that I got to play from then to now, the pay was better, obviously, and then you know it was one of those things like some good friends of mine who actually made it. I think I was like 5th place, and I think they got like 3rd or 4th. I can't remember what the spot was, but they went into it like one of the guys worked at a hotel, And they went into it thinking, we got to do this. Like, we got to win this $1 million, and that'll be our way. Like that again. Like that was
that's our golden ticket. Like that's
target.
we're.
And now, because they hadn't had that plan in place around it, they still do stuff. They play at basketball games.
Yeah.
Some of the best singers I've ever heard in my life, by the way.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a plan, so now they're back where they were. Like, and I looked at it more like, I don't really care if I win. I want to be, if I'm going to do this and put my family through the stress of doing this, I want to get as far as I can without having to get stuck into the contract and the BS.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, it'd be kind of like the equivalent of, if you wanted to really promote yourself as a band or as a studio, you would have to spend $100,000 to do or more to do what I did on that show.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I looked at it as that's my $100,000.
Sure.
Like, that's my advertisement.
Well, you
that's
put
my
in
promotion.
the work. You definitely had to put in the work. So
it was pretty intense, but it was fun. I had a lot of fun.
But dude, through that show, right, you ended up doing some pretty cool gigs.
I did.
I mean, just give me a few of those. Name drop as much as you want.
Oh, I get permission to name drop.
Yeah.
Well, I performed on the show with Rachel Platten, who, like, newer kids that are listening would know that name.
Yeah.
Who she was a baby doll. She was sweet.
Awesome.
She was great to work with. And then I've played since then with Billy Gibbons. I've played with John
Top,
Popper.
baby.
I played with my drummer at a show in New York was Kenny Arnoff. Like, that still blows
he is
my mind.
Kenny Arnoff is a legendary studio musician and drummer. Just unbelievable.
Can I throw this in here too?
Yep.
I have to say that the West Coast musicians, not saying here because I love all the musicians around here, but I guess I'm comparing it to Nashville.
Yeah.
The West Coast musicians blow the water, blow the other musicians in Nashville out of the water. As far as even musicianship and creativity.
Well, you had some monsters play on your last record.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the bass player that played with David Bowie forever, and then Michael Jackson.
Then Phil X.
And Phil X played guitar on it.
Who is playing for a little band called Bon Jovi now.
Just a little
by the
band.
way. Just,
and
small
the,
band who just got, I think Bon Jovi's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Music Hall of Fame this year. Yeah.
But all those guys, you think about those guys and who they travel and work with, were some of the nicest, down-to-earth, sweetest people in the world. Like, if I'd went to the same session in Nashville, it'd been the most bitter guys just waiting to get their paycheck and cram through an all preset song.
It's funny how that works. So.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, in my head, like, I felt bad when I left the first week because in my head, I had envisioned it being horrible. Like, I was going to hate working with professional West Coast guys.
Yeah.
And now I would never want to work with a Nashville guy if I could just work with those guys. It's just the way they treated you. And I mean, they're good players in Nashville, but there's ego in Nashville. And not one time, I got no ego at all, which blew me away.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
So, and I met them through the show, introduced me to Martine Gigi, who is a music producer and movie producer.
Pretty talented producer. He's unbelievable.
He is, and he knows everybody. Like, the session happened because Martine called all those guys and said, "Hey man, I got this guy Benton coming in, and he's really good, and we'd love for you to come in and play on the record." And then, like, normally they'd be like, "Okay, for $5,000 a song, we'll be there." And these guys were like, "Sure."
Whatever.
Showed up, didn't even ask how much it was.
That's
and then
crazy.
End of the first day, they were like, "So we're done?" Or at the end of the week, and Martine said, "Yeah, I think so." And they're like, "Oh man, can we do?" Like, they wanted to
do some
more.
Wow,
that's awesome.
I'm just sitting there like, and we're in Dave Grohl's studio from the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, the record was done there. Yep.
So I'm just literally sitting here like trying to pinch myself because it just doesn't make any sense that they're that into it.
Yeah.
And it's just another one of those things that when I saw that happen, and I knew that I'm not doing the wrong thing. Like, if these guys are getting it and and they like what I'm doing, then I'm doing something right.
Sure.
I mean, dude, it just says so much about perseverance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. You had every excuse to stop what you were
multiple times, and
many times.
That's there's the 10-year rule in Nashville. I believe that's the more now that I've been playing for almost 20 years. I think there is something to once you're doing it full time, not full time like you don't have another job. Everybody can have a second job or whatever, but if it's your career, like
Yeah.
You're this artist or this band, and you're doing it until you've done it for about 10 years. That like around the 10-year marks when things seem to, it's like you flush all the other stuff out.
Yeah. I've seen that even with me. I think even with me, and I think, you know, in my case, we stayed here. We stayed in Morganton, North Carolina, which is a small town in western North Carolina. It played against me for a little bit, but after a while, it doesn't matter anymore. Pretty much, I would say 95% of what I do comes here. They love coming here. And now, would I benefit from being in a bigger town? Probably.
Maybe.
I don't know, but I don't care at this point. I think, you know, God, life put us in this situation. And I wasn't, the only thing I ever, I think maybe years ago, I struggled with my friends leaving, you know, that always bothered me. You know, me and you have a lot of mutual friends that came from this area that have moved on. You know, a lot of the guests on the podcast, you know, started in this area and had to move on. And at some point I was like, I had to be okay with that. Sure. Because this area, you know, people ask me, how do you do it here? Well, you sort of don't. Yeah. Like you can get your career started somewhere else and eventually come here if you wanted to. But the bottom line is you have to go to the places that support local music. We're near Charlotte, North Carolina. You would think Charlotte is a big town. The bands there are having the same issues as the bands here. Yeah. You know, it's not unique, right? It's just not. Yeah. And but getting back to like the perseverance thing and being, you know, not stopping. You had every excuse, even living here. Yeah. Like you could have, at any point, you could have been like, bump it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But you didn't. You didn't. And I think that speaks volumes for your character. And I think, you know, when I hear people question artists sometimes with their faith, especially on the Christian side of things, I know most of the people. You know, I know a lot of these people. I know a lot of these musicians, but I know you personally. And if they had gone through half of what you went through, I don't think they would have had that faith. Yeah.
Oh, I definitely think it. You know, it definitely it changed my faith. It never changed my my mental thought on salvation and who God is and Jesus and all the things that is apparent. But it changed my outlook on how that should be displayed by us as people, or at least myself.
Well, I think, and see, that's what's important about this. We need to expose people to different personalities in what we do as musicians and in our faith. If you talk to me day to day, I'm just a guy, man. I have a family. I want to be the best husband I can. I want to be the best dad I can. I want to produce good music. Yeah. And I want to play the guitar. And I try to play it well, you know, and I keep things simple, you know, and I let like the rock star evangelist dudes be the rock star evangelist dudes. Mm-hmm. I don't need to be that way. Sure. And I had to get comfortable in my own skin spiritually to sort of understand that. Oh yeah. You know, and especially as a Christian musician, I think a lot of times maybe you feel guilty, right? Mm-hmm. Like you may be like, man, what am I doing? You know what? Mm-hmm. And you really have to understand the value of music and where you are personally. Yeah. Personally, like I'm not making this decision for anybody. If you don't feel comfortable doing the bar thing and you don't feel comfortable doing mainstream music, then don't do it. Yeah. Like period. I understand what you're doing, the limits, and go with it. You know what I'm saying? But if you're an artist in that world and you find yourself struggling, there are other options. Mm-hmm. Yes. There are other things. Yeah. And, you know, we didn't have iTunes back in the day the way it is now, right? Yep. We didn't have social media to get our music out when we first started out, but you can now, right? You can get your music out now, and you don't have to only do Christian music. You can do a little bit of everything. Yeah. And you got a platform to do that. And I think, if anything, with the industry changing so much, the music industry is basically in the toilet compared to what it used to be. At least independently, people can control what they put out better, right? Would you say that?
Yeah, I think it's like it's like a love-hate with that whole thing because this digital has came around and streaming.
It's hurt us.
It's hurt the musician. And
there's no arguing of that. It hurts us.
You guys with Elisha and the groups that you're playing with now probably experience the same thing. It's like right around the time y'all were playing and we were playing with 7 Miles, like CD sales, you could just boxes and boxes and, you know, online orders and that kind of stuff. And now it's like people are like, yeah, I love your music. And then you put out a single and nobody buys it because they stream it.
Right.
Yeah.
They already have
it's
it
in
on
their
phone.
pocket. It's in their pocket.
Right. And it makes you feel like a granddad way sooner because there was this curve from like the late 90s to the middle of the first decade of the 2000s where we were just cutting our teeth. And now I finally feel like I'm probably good and I can't sell anything.
Right.
Because the technology has run away with me while I've been working on the technical stuff with me.
So,
you know?
So the challenge as an artist is you've got your platforms, right? You've got your social media platforms, which we're about to get to. This could be a long one, but you've got so many interesting things. I want to hit them.
Yeah.
But that's where it's important, you know, as an artist or a songwriter or even a church or a pastor or whatever, to use your social media platform in a positive way. Let me emphasize positive way, you know, especially as a
positive and encouraging.
Yeah. Like, which is what we're going to try to do. But this leads me to, this is my favorite thing, Benton. And we don't have to talk about this long, but your social media. Now, when you meet Benton, he's like a teddy bear. He's like this huge teddy bear. Very sweet, even-tempered, right?
Pretty much.
Can you argue? You can't argue with me on that, right?
Yeah.
Like
he's
that
just
very
chill, man.
white voice talking to you.
Yeah, he's just
lulls
silky
you.
smooth. But let me tell you, on social media, you are a shark.
Oh, man.
You don't back down.
Well, I think that's like my personality's always been pretty even keel. Like on the TV show, The America's Got Talent, after I won, the producer was filming me. He's like, so how do you feel? I'm like, yeah, it's cool. He's like,
Yeah.
but he literally gets on one knee.
They
and
want
like,
you acting like a
he puts
cheerleader.
his hands up. He goes, but how does it feel like your family's
Hey,
here?
how was Nick Cannon? This is totally off the subject.
First time I met him, I hated his guts.
Okay.
Once the show got started and I realized who he was and I got him, he was awesome.
Okay.
Like the first time I met him.
Because I think he's off his rocker right now. But,
yeah, he is.
Okay.
But the first time I met him,
he seems legit.
he smiled, and as soon as the camera went off, it went from smile to nothing and walked away. And I hate that about people. Like there's a personality problem.
He just knew how to turn it off.
But then once the show got going and he actually started talking to me, as less and less people were on the show, I get like that's his world. He has to do that every day with like 4 different shows.
Yeah.
And it's like I got it when I had to do meet and greets and there's 1,000 people in line and I had to hold a smile for a picture for 5 minutes every picture because I couldn't figure out how to use the camera.
Yeah.
At the end, you're just like, oh, get me out of here. I need a beer. You know.
That's funny.
I just need to like not do anything.
But
with
back
my
to back to your social media, because you know it is. You have always, that's another part of your persona you've handled personally.
Yeah.
Right. You've always handled that yourself, and you've done really well.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's taken up a lot of my life, but it's worth it. I think for my career and what I'm doing. Like I always try to stay ahead of the new thing coming out, even if it ends up flopping. I try to at least sign up for it so I have it.
Yep.
And if I have to dive in, like Snapchat, God forbid, I hated
can't.
that I even
This
had
is
to
gonna
do
date
that.
me. This is gonna totally date me. But I can't. I tried it. I just can't. I can't do it. I can't Snapchat.
The problem is, I think Instagram and Snapchat are where people are starting to go to advertise.
Yes.
So I
love Instagram.
Yeah.
I love it.
Unfortunately, I had to jump into that world, but I've just tried to keep up with it because that is like your avenue to your current fans and to their friends who could become new fans as well.
Sure.
So,
and it'll be something else soon too.
oh yeah.
And really, I think, but again, for your longevity, that's something else that I think
You have to do it.
you've done really well with.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't care, like, you know, I only, you know, we talked about early on in the podcast, like, we, you know, we don't really get into political stuff.
Yeah.
I just think that's going to split our audience. I'm not trying to do that.
Sure.
We're more of an encourager kind of place. And that's, and the reason I want to be that way is because we are going to have people on here that aren't believers, right?
Yeah.
And I want artists to feel comfortable and not feel like we would ever bring up stuff and purposely put them in a jam. But personally, I only hand out a few like political freebies for my social networking. Okay, my mother-in-law is one. There's a few friends of mine, and then you. Okay, and
everybody else gets the do not follow.
They get the do not follow or the big FU.
Yeah.
Like I'm just not. When I talk about
Furman University.
Yes, like the people, like when we talked about letting certain people in your circle of friends, and that's the way I started treating my social media about 4 years ago.
Yeah,
like I was like, okay, we're going to start. It took me a long time to whittle that down. Yeah. But the bottom line is, and I'm going to use this as a preachy moment. Mm-hmm. Like, I personally know you. Your views haven't changed.
Right.
You had those views when we were in a van traveling through the state of Oklahoma or whatever we were doing. Oh, yeah. That hasn't changed. Yeah. Like, you're not putting on an act. What you're doing online is who you are.
Yeah.
And to deal with what you deal with, I don't know how you do it, man. I mean, I really don't. But I think, but I know you, right? And I'm totally fine with it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, go off, have fun.
Yeah.
Like I respect where you're coming from, even though maybe not all the time. I'm like,
Sure.
But the funny thing is, like, our friendship will always trump. You see what I did there? But it really will. It will literally trump that stuff, in my opinion. And that's where, but I think it's pretty ingenious what you've done, to be honest.
Well, I feel like it's like we've turned into a society to where if you have a differing opinion, that's not acceptable. It's God. You either have to be one way or the other. And the reason I started posting some of my thoughts, even though I've always thought the way that I did about them, is because of that. Like I know for a fact that if I post this person's going to get pissed off about it.
Yep.
But they shouldn't. Like they could disagree with it.
Yep.
But I'm not on their page saying, "Hey, you're wrong. Here's what it is." Like I'm giving my opinion on my page.
Yeah.
And it to me that's how our society or our country or however you want to look at it based on where you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
We should just all be able to have opinions. We should be able to debate them.
Yep.
Like I should be able to disagree with you, you disagree with me, and then at the end of the day, we give each other a high five and go along.
I think we discussed this over dinner, but like I feel like we're really going through a time period in this country with social media that we're seeing the effects of it.
Oh yeah.
And it's hurting. It hurts us. We're going through a huge growing pain, even locally. Mm-hmm. In Morganton, we had a high school situation here it was Friday.
Yeah.
It was horrible, a really negative situation because of a post that wasn't even originated on Facebook from this area. It came from another state. And I was telling Benton this earlier that I think we should be held responsible for things like that. Mm-hmm. If we're willing to post a threat, any kind of threat, all of those things would never be said face to face, just passing by at the grocery store, right? Yeah. But I think people get behind the keyboard, they get brave. Like YouTube culture is the worst.
Oh, YouTube is, when I did the show, I was told by a friend who was on the show, they said, whatever you do, don't go watch your YouTube video.
Yeah, YouTube's brutal.
And I did not take his advice.
Oh, you read the comments.
And at first, it made my wife insane. Like, my wife does not have my temperament. And if somebody attacks me, she loses her mind.
She's a bit of a sassy pants.
Yes. So YouTube, out of all the social media platforms, YouTube is the worst as far as those people who literally just want to
will say whatever,
make you feel bad and make you think you're the worst person on earth.
And that right there is what I'd like to see us move away, just as a society, right? And I think it should start with believers. Right.
Absolutely.
And I think some of the worst stuff I've seen, unfortunately, have been from people that call themselves Christians. Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm just saying, as people, we need to be examples, period.
Right.
And if you're an atheist, whatever, I don't care what you are, you got to live above that. And that's the stuff and really I still struggle with that stuff, man. Like, but your social media, you've sort of worked it in a way that it's worked for you.
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
and that's the thing about it. Let's say we're talking to a new artist that's listening to the podcast, and they heard you say that I post political stuff or religious stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
The thing that I do though is on my personal page, I'll share my thoughts. If I'm sitting on the toilet and I want to tell people I'm sitting on the toilet, I'll say, "Hey, I'm sitting on the toilet."
Sitting on the toilet.
But if sitting on the toilet, if I am, if it's politics or if it's religion, like I'll give my opinion, because I don't want to ever be one of these people that kind of change my opinion with the tide of what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
It's just like what he was saying. Like I want people to always know this is what I think, not because it's making me popular, because a lot of times it's probably the opposite effect. Like I don't have the same thought process as the rest of the music community.
Yeah.
But when you come to my show, I don't mention politics. The most political I've ever been is when we played a show at the Hickory Fairgrounds, and I wore a Bush sticker on my guitar.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because he was running for election.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I didn't say a word about it.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing my job and I'm on stage, or if I was accepting an award, or if I'm working, I don't bring politics into it. The religion part comes out in my music. I don't have to talk about it.
Sure.
Because you are who you are.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's my problem right now is I feel like there's people that are starting to try to use that, like they're trying to use their job as a platform, but those people aren't buying that product to listen to their idea. They want music.
Yeah.
So I've always tried to separate it. So I have a fan page, and I have my personal page, and I've started a podcast page, just Benton being Blount, BLUNT.
Yep. I check it out on YouTube. Yep.
Just so that it's separate, but people can still see it all. Like my fans know how I think if they follow me enough, because they see it. But they know on this part they don't have to. If they're ultra liberal and anti-Christian, they can still come to my show and they're going to enjoy it, because I'm not going to bring that up.
Yeah.
So listen, we learned a lot
So much
in this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm still shocked that your band basically was like, "Hey, we need you to sing and write the music."
Yeah,
I'm still in shock by that.
I am too. I'm glad that literally helped me for a lot of reasons, because I've had to do a bunch of stuff by myself, and I've written with you. I've written with writers in Nashville since then, and I've learned how to do that too. But if I hadn't got kind of thrown into the lion's den, I would.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
That is like, that's the craziest thing, man.
Well, and it wasn't even for that. It was. We need you to write songs because we're going into the studio next month, and then we're gonna go on tour with the Newsboys.
Yeah, that is nuts.
And you were how old at this point?
I was 19, turning 20.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's just insane, man. Just one situation turns into this.
But
so
now I can honestly say this. I'll throw this in before I know we're probably getting close to wrapping up.
No, we're gonna have some funny questions for you here.
Oh, nice. If I could go back in time, I would do what I feel like, what I know you've done, and from what I've known of you, Jimmy, you've done too. Is I wish I had been engulfed in it earlier. Like, as far as I've been blessed to go now, I know that if I had a more,
you mean like at a younger age, maybe, like the bug bit you
exactly,
younger.
like so I got through that stuff before, because now when I get a new, like I just started doing movies. I've done a movie.
Yeah, you're going to be on a movie soon, right? Yeah.
Now I knew what to look for because of the TV show. Mm-hmm. So I went into it, and these actors in Hollywood who were in this movie thought that I was an actor from Hollywood because I knew what I was supposed to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it was because of that experience. So I wish I'd had, if I could do anything at all, it'd be go back, like learn to play a little earlier, learn to sing a little earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like you picked up that guitar quick, man. Like you're still, I mean, even
I was scared to death.
Well, I know, but even, I mean, listen, we saw Mac Powell perform a couple of nights straight, and he even admitted, he was like, listen, I hate playing the acoustic guitar by myself.
Yeah.
Right? The dude can play the acoustic guitar just fine.
Oh, yeah.
And his songwriting is killer.
Mm-hmm.
But he just, obviously, his self-esteem, but of course his band was unbelievable.
Yeah. Right.
Like, those guys were sick.
You know what, like I said earlier, Mac Powell was a big influence of mine. But sitting down with him at the hotel and just talking for a couple hours.
Yeah, he totally won me over.
Yeah, it's what every artist really should ultimately be able to do, to know, to know, number one, that they're just human beings and they're cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
They know some of the same people you do. They're a lot more human. They make you look superhuman sometime when you're not. So it was cool to see him in that light, because I already liked him before, but I gained more appreciation of him after like being on the road with him. It was cool.
That is awesome. Well, Jimmy, let's hit him up with some questions.
Bombs away, baby.
Lord.
Sound effects.
Bombs away segment.
There they go again.
All right.
3 questions. And I'll go ahead and preface this by telling you the last question for everyone is, what is and where was your favorite taco from? So I'll let you think on that for a second. All right. So the first question for you, since you're so good at this storytelling thing.
Oh gosh.
Just off the top of your head, can you give us like a weird scenario, just the craziest kind of setup gig that you've ever played, where you were just like, I've got to get out of town, and as soon as they let me, I'm gone.
So you're saying, explain to you like the worst show I've ever played in my entire life. Okay, I got you. Easy. First year I was playing music, we played at a little place that you will know of, that some of the listeners may not know of, called Broughton Hospital.
Oh man, I think you've told me this story.
Hey, baby.
I love it.
They said, we want you to come play for some of the patients, and I'm thinking, okay, there's a young girl in the band, like she's not even 13 yet, so they're not gonna put us in like the crazy ward of this mental facility. So we go in, and they open this gate, and we're in a courtyard. I'm like, cool. They put us out like where the picnic tables are and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. Set up the stage. The pastor comes out. He goes, y'all ready? I was like, well, yeah, there's nobody out here. He goes, they'll be here. And I was just like, what? And all of a sudden I heard him say, close it. I was like, oh, hell. And all of a sudden I literally hear, as the door's closing, I hear it going, and as this door's closing, the doors on all the floors start opening. And people walk out like The Walking Dead. I swear to the Lord above. And they start strolling their way.
That's the best thing ever.
Completely melodic, some of them drooling, out into the court. And I'm not making fun of mental illness. I'm just explaining what happened.
Yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating.
Well, for a group of kids that have
in a church,
would be
never seen
very
this
scary.
before.
Yeah, and there's only like 2 orderlies, and there's like 100 people, and they all are obviously either on medication or really messed up.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're playing praise and worship music, and there's a dude smoking a cigarette, like with his arms up and down, like bowing to the girl in the band. Oh, like right in front of the stage. I thought I was going to kick him in the face one time. He's
oh
just
my
getting
God,
so
that's
close.
great.
And we get done to the point where we're packing up, and everybody's freaking out still, because it was literally like the white shirt coat thing. Like they were full blown. Yeah. And I was talking to this kid, and he's like, yeah, I'm in a band. I'm from Marion. And I'm like, cool. And he keeps getting closer to me. And finally, one of the orderlies comes out the door and grabs the dude and takes him inside. He's one of the people who took off his outfit.
So you thought
you were talking to a normal dude,
not a patient.
Yeah, I thought it was just like a guy that worked there or something. And it was at that moment that I was like, I'm ready to get out of here.
Gotta go, man. Oh, I think that one's probably worse than any of my bad.
That's a pretty great story.
Probably. I don't know. I might have some for later.
Okay.
Question number 2. If you could boot somebody out of a band and be in that band.
Oh yeah, this is a great question.
Ooh.
What band would it be? Now we've already heard some of your Edwin McCain and Mac Powell.
Yeah.
But if there's a band out there that you wish you could kind of roll around with, you don't have to necessarily sing. You can just play, or maybe just be the guy that dances on stage.
So it could be like any instrument, even though I don't know how to play it.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. If there's a guy in that band that you don't like,
kick him out.
Just kick him out and take his spot.
Oh, so I have to not like them, or I just want their spot.
You just want their
spot. Want their spot. Want their spot's fine.
I just want their spot.
We want to keep it positive.
Yeah. I would probably. I'm gonna really go in and make some musicians want to throw up and say I would replace Scott Stapp in the original Creed.
You heard it here.
No, I'm
Wow.
talking. I'm not talking like after he went crazy, shaved his head.
We're talking early Creed.
I'm talking early Creed, like playing at Alcatraz on a battle stage with
Yeah.
Tremonti ripping it up.
So
and
you're
people
talking
losing
about
their
you just
mind.
want to be in a band with Tremonti. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, Tremont. I don't care. I don't even know who the other guys are.
So
but
you could
Tremonti.
be,
It
you could
really-
basically be Alter Bridge with Benton Blount.
Tremonti
Yeah,
only.
yeah.
Tremonti really.
Yeah, just
He's the guy.
It was like in their heyday before people went in this whole Nickelback phase. Like I personally think after listening to them live, Nickelback's still better than most of the bands out there. People
Absolutely.
just hate on them.
Amen.
Yeah, I don't understand the social networking thing about that.
Yeah, but it was the same thing with Creed. When they were underground, people loved them. When they got popular, they were
Everybody
sellouts.
hated them. Yeah.
But during their heyday, it was like, I mean, that was a rock show. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I call it. Can I say this word in?
Yes, you can.
It was rock. You know?
Yeah, you can say that.
It's like, just like you make this face the whole time.
Yeah,
Scrunch it all up as much as possible.
yeah, that's what it was.
So it wasn't really even about I don't know if for me if it would have been about the music to replace him and be the singer, but it's just like they were the closest thing to me to like professional wrestlers, like that feeling like when you come out to your own music, it's like, yeah. So
They were huge, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome, man. Man, this is a good bombs away.
Yeah, this is good. This is
And
gonna
the
be hard
third
to-
one, like, what is the your favorite taco and where was it from?
here's where I'm gonna have a hard time with this. I'm not a fan of tacos,
He isn't. He really isn't.
but I will have to.
We're gonna have to put that disclaimer at the beginning of
It's
this.
all good.
Yeah,
It's
I've
all
only
good.
because I've honestly only had tacos from Taco Bell. So, and I can't say that's my favorite
No, you
place
can't.
at all.
You can't. Just move along.
So what I'll
Benton's
switch it
diet
to
is simpler.
what I'll switch it to is my favorite place to eat food that you would order tacos from, which would 100% be Mountain Burrito.
Okay.
Boom.
All right.
And
all
that
right.
was not influenced by me, by the way.
The
Oh,
chips.
come on.
I'm serious.
If they
I
could
know
make
what he gets.
tacos
I know what he gets.
They
that
do.
tasted like the chips,
They do.
well, then that will be my favorite taco.
Yeah, every now
Yeah,
and
those
again.
chips, man.
I've never had anything like it.
Nope.
I've traveled the
those
entire
are the best shells around.
I've traveled the entire country for the last couple years, like to Los Angeles, down to Texas, to here, and I've never eaten chips and queso
Yep.
and chicken and steak like you get in Mountain Burrito in
Yeah,
Morganton, North
you
Carolina.
just
I don't
heard
think
that,
anybody
and that
has.
was not influenced by me.
No,
by the way,
and you know what's
Absolutely
super
not.
cool is like our next episode is gonna.
Yeah, we're gonna
feature
have
the
we're gonna
owner,
have the
so-
owner on with us the next
rad.
episode.
It's crazy. Even the guys from Nashville, like that, when we would come
Yeah.
this way, they're like, "Hey, can we stop at that Mountain Burrito?"
They love
place
it,
coming
man.
through?"
Everybody
Yeah.
comes through here. It's
Yeah, man.
It's great. Well, listen,
It's the jewel of the mountains.
Benton. I know I love you.
I love you too, man.
Thankful for you. It was really nice being on the road with you. It was funny. It was like we picked up right where we left off,
Oh yeah.
and it's it'll always be that way.
Well,
I think.
funny quick story at the end, like I'm hijacking the podcast. but
Hijack it away, bro.
when Ricky first started playing with us, he wasn't playing with us. He came out and
Just help.
ran sound,
Yeah, front house.
but he was a badass guitar player.
Yeah.
So at first it started out as kind of me putting him on the spot, and I'm like, dude, we got our sound guy's a really good guitar player. Come up. I think he only did one song,
Yeah,
like the last
yeah,
song,
yeah.
because he's the only one that knew how to play it.
Oh yeah.
And then that just kind of turned into
I saw a show like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
yeah, that was early on because like I personally, there was a time period in my 20s where, it wasn't a rough patch to say like musically, but there was a time where I was in between the band. I'd gotten off the road with Four Man Furnace, and we were still very good friends. Those guys went on to be an amazing band called Evoca, but I was cutting demos for people, just doing my thing. I was plugged in at a church. We were really trying to help build a church locally that me and my wife really believed in, and really meeting you, right, and then going through that was one of the best things ever for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because it was different for me. I came from such an indie background, like musically. I mean, I loved indie bands, and it forced me to think with a different part of my brain. Right here we had this dude like Benton. Your vocal, it is the strongest vocal I've ever recorded. Your vocal is just insane, and it's crazy. It's crazy, but it hasn't changed, right? For me. So it helped me change my mindset. And it was fun, man. Like, it was never about anything else to me other than the music and the fun we had.
Yeah.
Like, and it's still that way to me, in a different way, but it really did, man. It really helped me. It was just a different brain, man, and it's the way God works things out for me.
Same thing with me. I mean, that was me playing with somebody who was more from the rock world or the indie world like that. Like it forced me to like listen to music I'd never listened before, like try my voice in different ways, which is how I kind of discovered where my voice was. Yep. Just from listening to stuff I didn't listen to.
And I have lifelong friends from that situation, and then when you go on into the country world, we have lifelong friends from that world.
Yep.
Isn't that crazy?
I know it.
And it's awesome. And when you're a Cuban kid growing up in a redneck town, it's what it is. I never ever felt any strangeness from that. You know what I'm saying? But when you're into music, it's weird.
Yeah.
It just is, because there's not a lot of us here.
Yeah.
There was not a lot back then. So it was really unique that, number one, we found each other and we did that. And I think we'll do it more in the future, to be honest.
Yeah.
It'll never, like, if you called me 4 months from now, you're like, bro, we're going out to do this, I'm probably going to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we just have fun.
Because the hang to me is more important than anything else at this point in my life. It's a fun thing to do, because I've had, good Lord knows we've had enough. We've dealt with enough.
Yeah. I'm definitely in the season where I just want to enjoy what I'm doing.
And man, you're a dad,
Oh, yeah.
And
when does this podcast go out?
We started promoting this week. This is the beginning of March. So the first, probably by the end of March, early April.
And technically by the time people hear this, it will be out.
Yeah.
So
they will be hearing it.
Probably spring is what I'm thinking. Early spring.
So like by April-ish?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I'll be a dad for the third time then.
Whoa.
No kidding, man.
So now that everybody hears
the first
this,
here.
Yeah,
all
you're
right.
the first person
this will be number 3. They say there's like no difference between 3 and 10.
Oh man.
Right?
I just wish I could plan one of these. I definitely have not planned any of them.
Well,
that's awesome, man.
Well, I tell you what, man, stay at it. I think it was fun to watch you with your fans this past tour and watching the crew that shows up, and I saw you win over some people.
Yeah.
Right. People like our promoter, Jason Wall. Mm-hmm. What's the name of the company?
Little Flower Events.
Yeah. I'm going to have him on the podcast, God willing. He's traveling all over the country right now.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, he was straight up enjoying when you were singing. He loved it.
Yeah.
And I think
he's a good dude.
He's a good dude, but he's just another example, of when you're up there performing, how you win people over, and I got to watch you win over some new people, and I giggle because I'm like, they know, like they're getting ready to find out what I already know. And people, I think people are drawn to that.
Sure.
Right. People can see that. And I think fans see it, and it's really says something to the up and coming artists and musicians. Like, you really do need to stay true to who you are.
Well, that's going to take you far, and I swear to the Lord, I'm not making this up to add it to your podcast, but the two of you are, if it weren't because the two of you are who the two of you are, I would have stayed at home to hang out for the night before the show, because
let me thank your wife. Let me thank your wife for allowing you. I am very thankful for that.
Yeah.
Well, she thinks the same way about, and I'm sure she would you if she knew you better, Jimmy, too. But she said, "Well, you're going to hang out with Ricky. I don't really care when you leave. Like, you can leave and come home whenever."
Benton's like, what?
And trust me, my wife does not say that ever for anybody. Anybody. It could be the Pope. She'd be like, "I don't care if he's a Pope. You better be home."
Are you saying that her pimp hand is strong?
Her pimp hand is the strongest of any pimp hands ever.
Breaking news.
but-
Benton's wife's pimp pant is strong.
But seriously, you guys are doing that too. Like, you've always just been real. Like, you know what you want to do, and you're very forward about it, and you give your opinions, and you're
Yep.
you know, you're not fake.
Yep.
I spent a long time being around fake people, and I don't ever desire to be around them anymore.
Yeah.
So anybody that's not fake, that's where I want to be.
I think the idea of what, you know, I thought this platform would be interesting to talk about it. For me to do new things, I really have to think about it for a long time. I had been thinking about this for almost a year.
Yeah.
You know, and then people would bring it up to me, and I'm like, man, like I had to logistically figure out how we were going to do this, and then B, I had to I didn't even know if this was going to work, you know. But you know what? I see a need. And I think we can schedule this on our time and make it work.
Yeah.
You know, we're not trying to make a dime. What we're trying to do is honestly try to help people, you know, and especially from a music perspective, people need to know. And from a faith perspective, we need to be honest about what we struggle with.
Sure.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
That's just something gone from our culture. You're not going to hear preach on here.
Yeah.
You're not going to hear me talk pie in the sky stuff. I don't do that. You know, I need Jimmy here for my balance for that stuff.
If I get too far in there, he's like, well, let's get back to it.
But you're not that way, though. You know, Jimmy,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
are who you are. And that's why you're here, I think. But there needs to be discussion, and if we can spur it on, right?
Yeah.
And there will be other things, you know, but this won't be the last time you'll be on.
Anytime. I love it.
I think you'll always have a home here, for sure. If you want to come and maybe we can delve into more of your political stuff if you want to.
We can talk about. I have always been an open book to a fault sometimes, but
Oh yeah, me too.
I'll talk
bro.
about anything.
I ran into a family at Starbucks that they were like, "Oh, we're getting ready to go to Disney." I was like, "Oh my God, you're gonna love Disney!" And we had like a 15-minute conversation about Disney with a family I didn't even know.
And then they left. They're like, "Oh my
They were
God,
like,
I didn't
Never
know
going to
That
Disney.
dude is a freak.
if he's going to Disney,
We're
I'm
not
staying home."
So yeah,
We're just going to Universal.
I don't ever. I would talk to a brick wall.
Yeah.
But listen, seriously, not that you need this, but if anybody wanted to find you, where can they find you?
They can go to easiest way is to go to bentonblount.com, BLOUNT. And that leads you to all my other sites,
Your
all
Twitter,
those
your
things we
Facebook.
talked about. Yeah.
Yep. And you got a podcast too. You do a podcast every week, and
I
it's
do.
live, right?
Yeah, I'm just starting it, so I'm doing it live. So literally on Monday nights at 8:30, it's called Benton Being Blunt, and
Yep.
all I do is I take fan questions. So it's not even like I'm trying to push an agenda. I'm just asking what people want me to talk about, because usually they know it's going to piss some people off. But I try to, anytime I talk about anything, I try to be as diplomatic as possible and say things in a way to where it's showing my opinion, but it's also kind of giving my reasons on both sides. So hopefully there's not, like, I want to post something or say something to where nobody can really debate with it, even if they disagree. Like, it's just it's just an opinion.
Yeah.
Like, three of us probably think completely different about certain things, and that's completely okay.
Yeah.
But that's awesome you're doing that. So find him on his website. You
Yep.
can find him on Twitter, Facebook, and his live podcast every week. Jimmy, where can we find you?
Dude, you can find me at jimmyatkinsmusic.com.
Boom.
Or if you want some beard supplies, I got you.
He's got the beard stuff.
RuddyManBeard.com. Man up. Take care of your beard.
Sound effect. Sound effect.
That was professional.
He's so good.
Yeah.
He's so good. I'm telling you, he was made for this. You guys can find me on Twitter at Ricky Rodriguez or on Instagram at Ricky Rod. I do thank you for listening. I know we appreciate you. If there's any feedback, you can find us on bombhousepodcast.com.
Yep.
Find us on Facebook at Welcome to the Bombhouse Podcast. We're working on some other social media stuff, but we're just getting the stuff started. So, but we are thankful for you.
This thing says shake well before use.
What I'm watching right now may be very disturbing to some people, so I'm not going to say it. But listen, thank you for listening.
Yeah,
We
thanks.
do love you all. Peace.
Take care.
Later.